Something a little bit different today. I thought I'd give you some insight into my encounter design process. If you're looking for a way of quickly and easily designing an encounter, so a one shot or part of an ongoing campaign, do this on the fly, do this super easy. This is one of the many ways I have of going about doing this. It's a rather simple process. You follow it, you inject your own creativity into it, and out comes something that's really cool and really fun to run. All right, let's get into it. The village of Neroville sits well beyond the boundaries of civilization. The people there live out in the wilderness and they have for generations, and they like it that way. All this time, they've lived in a rather comfortable harmony with nature, dealing with whatever problems come up as they need to. But lately, something is disturbing that harmony and is disturbing that balance. The local kobolds from the Scarscale tribe been much more aggressive, ignoring the old boundaries and pushing into farmlands to trading roads and causing all sorts of havoc. It was up to you and your fellow adventurers to resolve this growing crisis one way or another. Now, if you're thinking this sounds like a very simple setup for an encounter, kobolds are causing issues, go over there and deal with them. That's because it is, very much is. But this is an example of what I call a quantum burrow, which is an encounter design technique which is very good for creating encounters that work for people who are new to the hobby. So if I'm running an introductory session with people, I'll do this to create an encounter, create a one shot, which is perfect for them. And so to walk you through how this works, I'll use the example of my tipping the scales one shot. If you haven't played that yet and you'd like to, then feel free to move on, because this video will contain spoilers. And so here's how a quantum burrow works. Very, very simple. If you're at all familiar with the 5 room dungeon technique, I'm sure many of you are, then this will be quite similar to that, but with a few key changes. And if you've never heard of that, then don't worry about it. It's not important for this. But essentially, how tipping the scales work is they head off into the woods and they head to where the Scarscale tribe has its den, has its home, and outside they find some goblins who are trying to besiege the den, or they're trying to tease some of the kobolds, trying to do whatever they're doing. And just because the goblins are also against the kobolds, that doesn't mean they're good guys. They're going to attack the party. So the party fights their way through the goblins, and then they fight their way through some kobolds, and they make their way into the kobold den, and they start noticing signs of oozes. Apart from the kobolds, there are many oozes in this den. And when they get to the heart of this den, they find a lizard folk or a dragonborn or some sort of warlock who is brewing up these really nasty potions, some of which are alive, and feeding them to the kobolds. This is why the kobolds have been much more aggressive lately, because they've been imbibing this nefarious potion. So you deal with this warlock, this alchemist, who's leading them astray. You destroy the supply of the potion, and the kobolds go back to normal. It is not a groundbreaking plot, but let me tell you, it is plenty for people who are completely new to Dungeons and Dragons. If they just want to get a feel for how a session could go, get a feel for what the hobby is like, it's plenty for that. And what makes this so great for new players is that it is a burrow. You might have noticed that there's an outside and then there's an entrance and then there's deeper into the burrow and then there's the final chamber where you deal with the boss. What makes it quantum is that any of the rooms in between, so any part of the burrow, I can make longer or I can make shorter. Because a good thing that I like to do with new players is to keep the session to as close to 2 hours exactly as I can. Which means that sometimes when they're rolling well and they're just getting into the flow of things really, really easily, I need to slow them down a bit. And other times where this has been a little bit slower because, hey, they're figuring out the mechanics, they're figuring out this new character, they're figuring out everything about the game, then they'll be going a little bit slower, so I need to go a little bit faster. So, in the case of tipping the scales, is the encounter with the goblins outside, which is a nice little introduction to combat. And then inside, there are various rooms, various little set pieces, little mini encounters where they run into kobolds, they run into oozes, and depending on what I want them to do, I can skip these rooms entirely. If I want them to move fast, but also build up the tension, build up the atmosphere, then they find the kobolds and they're all sort of blissed out. It's like they're angry and aggressive, but they're not quite in the same dimension mentally. They've been reacting to the chemical in such a way where they're hallucinating, they're dazed, they barely even recognize that there are adventurers here. Same when they press on and they encounter the oozes. Maybe the oozes are really aggressive, and as soon as the players get near, the oozes attack. Or maybe the players get near and the oozes pull back. Because yeah, they're puddles of goo and they're alive doesn't mean that they have to be aggressive. When it comes to the final encounter, well, that needs to be there. They need to either deal with this rogue alchemist or die trying, because otherwise the kobolds will just keep doing what they're doing. And from there, it's a wrap. That's the encounter. So this is really simple. You can do this sort of thing for an ongoing campaign or for seasoned adventurers. You might need to do a little bit of extra padding in that case, adding more rooms, adding more encounters, making it a little bit more interesting. But this isn't really designed for people like that. It's designed for completely new players. And let me tell you, if you want to be a professional dungeon master, being able to run games for people who are completely new, like tutorial sessions, is a useful thing. Highly recommend it. Because not only is that good business, not only is that good for the hobby, it's also pretty good for your reputation. People get a taste of you, they like your style, they think of you fondly as their first ever dungeon master, and who knows, that can very easily lead to some ongoing business for you.